Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tutorly Test Prep. Today we'll be going over lesson number 3 on how to use the TI-30X Pro Math Print Scientific Calculator for the digital SAT Math, degrees, radians, and pi. Please note that it will only be covering uses where the TI outshines Desmos. I recommend you use Desmos for most questions. Everything covered in this lesson can also be performed on the TI-36X Pro, which you might find for cheaper in America. Let's get started. Okay, everybody, so the first really important thing you want to know is the conversion factor for converting between degrees and radians. Pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. That is really super important. If you understand how to do unit conversions, you don't need to know the bottom part, but just for the sake of simplicity of this video, you should know that to convert from degrees to radians, you multiply whatever value you have by pi over 180. And to convert from radians to degrees, you multiply whatever value you have by 180 over pi. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, first we'll compute, do some unit conversions from degrees to radians. We're going to convert 90 degrees and 120 degrees both to radians. Let's jump to the calculator. Okay, so if you're going to do this completely on the calculator, first you have to change the mode to radian. So I'm going to press mode and then highlight radian, press enter, and then I'll press clear to get back to the command line. Now I'm going to type in 90, and then I will press, because we're going to do 90 degrees, I'm going to press math, right, and then enter to put a degree symbol. And now 90 degrees, if it's in radian mode, if I press enter, it will change it to radians. So pi over 2. Let's do 120 degrees now. So 120, math, right, enter. And so 90 degrees is pi over 2, and 120 is 2 pi over 3. Now, that's kind of a lot to remember. I think it's just as easy to just do this the old-fashioned way. So why don't we do one of them the old-fashioned way? Why don't we do 120? So I'm going to do 120 parentheses, and then fraction pi down 180 right parentheses. So that's 120 times pi over 180. And that should give us the same thing, 2 pi over 3, regardless of which mode we're in. Let's go back to the whiteboard. Okay, great. Those are our answers for those two examples. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, next we'll practice converting radians to degrees. We have pi over 4 radians and 7 pi over 6 radians. Let's jump to the calculator. All right, so our goal unit for this question is degrees. So if we want to do it entirely on the calculator, we have to press mode and change it back to degrees. So press enter on degree, and then you can just press clear, and you see it'll say DEG at the top for degree. Okay, now we're going to do the examples. Let me check what they were real quick. Okay, pi over 4 and 7 pi over 6. So we're going to type in fraction pi over 4 and press the right arrow key to exit that. And now we have to indicate the unit of radians. So we're going to press math, right. And then if you scroll all the way down to option 4, little r, that is short for radian. And because the calculator is in degrees, it will convert it into degrees. So let's press enter. We get 45 degrees. And now let's do the same thing with 7 pi over 6. So 7 pi over 6, and then press math, right. You can just press 4 if you want, but I like to scroll down the menu. It doesn't bother me that much. So we got 45 degrees and 210 degrees. Once again, I still think it's easier to do this the old-fashioned way. So why don't we do that? So why don't we do it for the second one, 7 pi over 6. So I'll do 7 pi over 6. And to convert from radians to degrees, we're going to do parenthesis fraction 180 over pi, kind of the opposite of what we were just doing before. You can press the right arrow key, put a parentheses. And we also get 210. Great, let's go back to the board. Okay, great. Those are our answers for those examples. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, another very useful thing that the scientific calculator can do for the DSAT is simplify with pi. So it can do the fraction math for you while retaining the pi, which the DSAT often wants. They often want the exact answer in terms of pi. They don't want a decimal. So take a second to copy down these examples. Let's go and jump back to the calculator. Okay, these have nothing to do with the mode, nothing to do with memorizing anything. All you gotta do is type it in. So let me do the first one, pi plus fraction pi over 3. And we get 4 pi over 3. And if you wanted a decimal for whatever reason, you wouldn't, almost never on the test, right? But just in case you did, you could press this little key to change it to a decimal. You can change it back. We want 4 pi over 3. So the first one is 4 pi over 3. The second problem, we're going to do pi over 6 plus 3 pi over 4. And we get 11 pi over 12. That was probably, in my opinion, much faster than doing it by hand. It also goes faster, guys, when you're typing it in, like with your thumbs. I'm just clicking on the computer. It slows you down a little bit. Okay, the next one is 4 pi over 3 minus pi over 2. Press the right arrow key. And we press enter, and we get 5 pi over 6. So we just really quickly simplified all of those without having to track the pi or get a common denominator for the fractions or anything like that. So this probably saved you a solid, 10 to 25 seconds. Let's go back to the slide. Okay, those are our answers for those examples. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, here's a slightly modified example from a Blue Book app exam that kind of applies all these ideas we were just talking about, and you can see how much easier knowing how to use your calculator makes it. So first, kind of this keyword here, angle B is 7 pi over 12 radians greater, so that means it's bigger. So we're going to do 5 pi over 4, and it's larger, so we're going to do plus 7 pi over 12. And then whatever that gives me, I need to change it to degrees. Remember we talked about before, to go from radians to degrees, we multiply by 180 over pi. So now that we know what to do, let's jump to the calculator. Okay, so just like we did with the simplifying, we're going to do 5 pi over 4 plus 7 pi over 12. And let's just do it in 2 steps. Let's see what that gets us. So we get 11 pi over 6. That's how many radians it is, and now we need to change it. So really cool thing you can do, press the up arrow key and then press enter. It'll copy paste the previous entry onto the next line. So now we're going to do multiply that by 180 over pi. Again, you could use the native features of the calculator if you want. I just think that's a lot to remember. You're probably better off knowing that pi radians equals 180 degrees. And we get 330 degrees. That's our answer. Let's go back to the whiteboard and lock that in. Okay, great. So angle B is 330 degrees. And that is our final answer. You guys can see, again, how much easier this makes simplifying pi, and in particular, I think, converting degrees to radians, because oftentimes radians will have a pi in it, and it kind of does all that simplification with pi for you. It makes it much easier. Let's move on to the outro. Okay, that completes the lesson. Please like and subscribe for more digital SAT math content. If you're interested in my tutoring services, the link to my website will be in the description. I tutor SAT math and all math subjects from about 7th grade to AP/early college level. Thanks for stopping by, and good luck studying.